It's that time of year again to discuss the aftermath of the Game Awards. The nominees were revealed, the online community debated what's worthy of Game of the Year, and posted all about how the Game Awards is nothing more than a marketing event and Jeff Keighley's personal hangout with the Muppets. And you know what? They're right. The Game Awards has never been about the awards, it has never been about the developers, and it has never been anything more than an event put on each year to hype up the games industry. Maybe controversially, I think that's fine, for the most part. Hyping up the games industry while not acknowledging the layoffs that have been so destructive over the last few years sucks. Many of the developers that have made games we've all enjoyed are out of work, and instead of celebrating their accomplishments with everyone else, they're on an increasingly difficult job hunt to put food on their tables. But we're not going to get anything more than a gesture about that at the Game Awards, because it's funded by the very companies putting people out of work. In fact, the Game Awards has become even less about the people in games as time goes on. The last few years haven't had an Industry Icon Award, which was presented to people like Carol Shaw in 2017. This year, the Game Awards is also not doing its annual Future Class after reports came out that the program wasn't really living up to its promises set for inductees. What we did get this year was the Game Changer Award, which was a very nice recognition of Lemire Savat, who has been helping thousands of people out of work in the game industry find work. There also used to be a Trending Gamer Award, but with how some of those winners have turned out, maybe we better leave that one in the past. The problem with award shows is that they just don't make the awards interesting. Putting a nominees screen up and then haphazardly saying who won is boring. We don't get to see who made the game, any of the story of how it was made. At the Game Awards, it's just a product, and not celebrating the accomplishments of the art. Having made the documentary on Larian Studios and personally told Swen Vink and his studio's story, winning Game of the Year for Baldur's Gate 3 and the success it has brought the studio was a monumental achievement for Larian, and a very personal one for Swen. Larian Studios was almost shut down multiple times, to the point that Swen had nothing in his bank account, and workers at Larian had to sign 1-week contracts because they didn't know if they would be continuing the next week. Swen was making payroll, but had nothing else, just so that he could keep the lights on at the studio and continue to make games.
The dark times obviously were when there was not enough money to pay the team. This was because then I always had to take very big personal risks. And I did it because I believed that what we were working on was going to work eventually.
When I started working at Larian, we had weekly contracts. So every Friday afternoon we would sign the contract for next week. So we had a 1-week contract because we never knew when our last week would be.
Divinity Original Sin was the studio's very last chance to find success, and without that game, we would have never gotten Baldur's Gate 3. The Game Awards had a chance to highlight just how big of a moment this was. Instead, when Swen got up on stage to accept the award for Game of the Year for Baldur's Gate 3, a sign was in the background telling him to please wrap it up. At this year's The Game Awards, Swen finally got to give the speech that he should have been able to give the year his studio won the award, but was instead delivered for Team Asobi, who took home the Game of the Year award for Astrobot this year. It was a fantastic speech, and I implore you to listen to it in its entirety.
They didn't treat their developers like numbers on a spreadsheet. They didn't treat their players as users to exploit. And they didn't make decisions they knew were short-sighted in function of a bonus or politics. They knew that if you put the game and the team first, the revenue will follow. They were driven by idealism and wanted players to have fun. And they realized that if the developers didn't have fun, nobody was going to have any fun.
For many, making games is an arduous and very personal task. One of my favorite moments in all of the Game Awards was when Abubakar Salim, founder of Surgeon Studios, got up on stage to announce his debut game, Tales of Kenzera Zhao, and we got to learn about the backstory of why he's making the game through an emotional speech honoring his late father. These are the kinds of moments that make games human and interesting. Providing the stories behind the winners and the announcements help keep the show from feeling overly corporatized and just about the money. It's unfortunate that with an event as successful as the Game Awards, that we don't get to have more moments like that, especially with how developers in the industry at large are treated on social media platforms. So why am I fine with the Game Awards being what it is? Because we've watched it every year since it began in 2014, and I know what I'm getting out of it. I know we're not going to spend much time on the awards, I know that the general audience is there for the game announcements, and as time has gone on, the Game Awards has only gotten more transparent about what it is. We get the nominee announcements on social media, and then from that moment on, it's not about celebrating the games we've already played, but what we're playing next. We got trailers for Borderlands 4, Mafia: The Old Country, and lots of upcoming games people are certainly excited about, but not much time spent on who is making them. We knew from industry insiders that we were expecting some big exciting announcements. I knew that as we co-streamed the show this year, there would be a bunch of people in chat lamenting the amount of trailers and how little attention is given to the awards. We knew that we would be getting lots of CGI trailers for games that are years away. We know what the Game Awards are down to a moment-to-moment breakdown of how the show is going to go. What ads are going to be displayed, what the internet reactionaries will be angry about, and so on. I have voiced my complaints, the audience has voiced their complaints, but at this point, I know the Game Awards is a hype show for the industry, and that alternatives already exist for everyone to go and support if they want a more proper award show. The BAFTAs, Golden Joysticks, DICE, GDC, and smaller events like the Spawnies are all award shows that exist, spend more time highlighting developers and letting them share their stories, but they don't have the kind of mainstream appeal that the Game Awards do because they're not as sexy of events. They don't have the big new game announcements, or the big marketing budgets, big live orchestra performances, or Hollywood celebrities. They're a proper award show, and for the mainstream audience that's not as exciting to tune into obviously, and is more for industry colleagues to support and celebrate one another, more than it is an event that gets people excited about games. The alternative to all of that, if none of that is your jam, is an award show that wants you to pay $30 a year to vote in a show that actively disdains game developers and people who write and talk about games. I can't say I'm too excited about that one. I'm sure some will find it reductive of me to not expect more from the Game Awards. The show has had every opportunity to make an event that is more than just a hype show for upcoming games, and while this year was an improvement, it was only marginally so, and done so in a cynical way instead of just saying, hey, you expect better, and we need to do better. The show's audience has grown year after year, and people have made it clear they're not there for the long speeches or spending too much time on the people who made the games or the awards they receive. And that's fine. If you just like the announcements, that's okay. The Game Awards has always been about one thing: getting people excited for what's coming next in games. It's a marketing event, it always has been, and it always will be, because it's a for-profit event, and millions upon millions tune into it every year for those game reveals and announcements, not the awards.
This video is brought to you by Lord Embermaze, an upcoming adventure RPG where each of your individual steps control the flow of time. Venture deep into this gorgeous pixel art underworld, exploring dungeons, fighting monsters, and trying not to end up on the business end of a spike trap. The strategic puzzle-like combat means that you'll need to take careful consideration of each and every step. It's like playing hopscotch if you were also being chased by giant killer bees. Luckily, these dungeons are filled with helpful artifacts to aid you in your journey, and don't worry, you don't have to return any of these to some dumb museum. I mean, I ride just one of the dinosaur skeletons, and they give me a lifetime ban. Idiots. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to the Steam page now to wishlist Lord Embermaze and play a free prologue today.